Imagine waking up in a world where every spoken word is an absolute truth. Your brain refuses to construct sentences that don't correspond to reality. You try to say the sky is green, but instead your tongue only utters a statement about its blueness. You try to lie about your feelings, but your speech apparatus produces only an accurate description. This isn't a moral choice. It's a new law of nature confronting humanity. What happens to a society deprived of a fundamental social tool, lying? Imagine a street scene. A passerby asks a stranger for directions to the train station. Previously, the stranger might have answered, "I don't know," simply because he didn't want to waste time. Now his answer will be precise and detailed, even if he's in a hurry. Every word becomes a weapon of truth, merciless. Can you sense how the very fabric of human relationships is changing? Consider the world of retail. A salesperson can no longer praise a product by exaggerating its merits. Advertising slogans are turning into dry lists of features. Buyers are deprived of the opportunity to haggle, pretending to leave. Every transaction becomes as transparent as glass. Do you realize how much our economy depended on little tricks and omissions? Think of a courtroom. Witnesses testify only truthfully. Lawyers can't construct elaborate defenses. Prosecutors are forced to rely solely on facts. Justice becomes lightning fast and merciless. Can you imagine how many cases are resolved instantly? And how many people end up in prison, deprived of the opportunity to lie about their innocence? Look at the political arena. Diplomats are losing their negotiating tool. International treaties are becoming brief and unambiguous. Politicians answer directly at press conferences without equivocation or innuendo. Do you see alliances built on decades of mutual concessions and secret agreements crumbling? Feel the tension in an ordinary apartment. A husband and wife can no longer say everything is fine when a black cat runs between them. Children can't insist they've done their homework. Parents are losing the ability to withhold bad news. The family as an institution is being tested. Do you understand how fragile relationships can be without the saving lies? Turn your gaze to scientific laboratories. Researchers publish only confirmed data. Falsified dissertations disappear. Scientists admit errors in their hypotheses. Science is advancing at an unprecedented speed. But it is losing the element of creative imagination that often leads to discoveries. Do you sense the paradox? Truth, having become absolute, slows the flow of thought. Listen to the changes in art. Artists cannot give ambiguous titles to paintings. Writers create only non-fiction. Actresses only play characters whose feelings completely align with their own. Do you realize that art, as a form of understanding the world through fiction, is ceasing to exist? This thought experiment reveals a strange truth. Lying was not just a vice, but also a unique defense mechanism, a social shock absorber, a creative tool. A world without lies becomes a world without half-tones, without innuendo, without diplomacy, without art in its traditional sense. Now ask yourself, are you ready to live in such a world of absolute truth? Imagine observing global financial markets on the first day after the Great Fracture. You see traders on the stock exchange trying to carry out their usual operations, but their voices reveal only factual information about the actual state of companies. A broker can't say the stock is promising if they see a company's financial statements. An investor can't inflate the selling price knowing the asset's true value. Do you sense the growing panic in this chorus of forced truth? Pay attention to the price screens. See how the charts of companies whose values were inflated by marketing and empty promises are plummeting. Companies with solid foundations are demonstrating stability, while yesterday's market favorites are turning into worthless paper. Do you realize that the entire financial pyramid, built on illusions, has exposed its true foundation? Transport yourself mentally to the boardroom of a large corporation. Executives are forced to communicate real performance indicators, not embellished reports for shareholders. Development strategists are freed from ambitious but unattainable goals. Every decision is tested by an immediate, honest assessment of its consequences. Can you sense how the very nature of business management is changing? Look at the commercials now broadcast on all channels. Instead of slogans about product superiority, you hear dry lists of technical specifications. Manufacturers can't hide product flaws. and sellers are forced to be honest about real discounts. Do you understand that marketing as an industry of persuasion is ceasing to exist in its traditional form? Take a look at the banking sector. Credit officers are no longer able to offer unfavorable terms to clients under the guise of a good deal. Borrowers are honest about their financial situation. Hidden fees and fine print in contracts are disappearing as their existence is becoming impossible to conceal. Can you feel how an entire layer of financial services built on unclear terms is collapsing? Listen to the conversations in employment office queues. Former advertising agency employees, PR managers, diplomats, and actors are forced to be honest about their professional skills. They can't embellish their resumes, and employers can't promise non-existent prospects. Do you see how a new labor market is emerging, where only measurable skills are valued? Feel the impact on international trade. Negotiators are losing the ability to bluff their positions. Customs declarations are beginning to reflect the true value of goods. Offshore schemes are disappearing, as accountants are forced to truthfully describe all transactions. Do you understand the global scale of economic restructuring? This financial apocalypse reveals a simple truth. Lies were the lubricant in the market economy. Without them, the system first jams, then begins to operate according to new, unfamiliar principles. Now ask yourself, are you ready for an economy where the price of a product always corresponds to its value? Where investment is possible only in real assets? Where your salary accurately reflects your usefulness? Imagine yourself transported to a courthouse in the first days after the change. You watch as the judge questions the defendant, who cannot deny their guilt. The defense attorney is deprived of the opportunity to construct elaborate defenses if they don't correspond to the facts. Can you sense how the very atmosphere of justice changes, becoming harsh and unforgiving? Notice the prosecutor, who can now only ask questions to which he knows the answers. The indictment becomes a dry list of established facts, without assumptions or interpretations. Witnesses give testimony that rules out any distortion. Do you realize how much the trial loses its drama and begins to resemble a mathematical equation? Transport yourself mentally to a pre-trial detention cell. Suspects can no longer maintain their innocence if they have committed a crime. They are forced to describe the circumstances of the offense in detail, name accomplices, and point to evidence. Investigators ask only direct questions, knowing they'll get truthful answers. Can you sense how the justice system is transforming into a perfect truth-finding mechanism? Look at law firms, where lawyers are forced to completely change their approach. They can't promise clients a favorable outcome unless they're confident of it. Clever procedural tricks aimed at distorting the picture of what happened are disappearing. Defenses are now built solely on finding mitigating circumstances. Do you understand how the legal profession is taking on a completely new meaning? Take a look at jury trials. The selection process is instantaneous. Potential jurors honestly answer their biases and their ability to objectively evaluate the case. The trial itself takes hours instead of months, since there's no time to refute false testimony. The verdict becomes a mathematically precise conclusion based on the established facts. Can you feel how the legal system is speeding up? Listen to the work of legislative bodies. Members of Parliament cannot make empty campaign promises. Laws are passed more quickly because ulterior motives and ambiguous interpretations disappear. Lawyers formulate regulations with utmost precision, since unclear interpretations are no longer possible. Do you see how the very nature of lawmaking is changing? Experience the consequences for the penitentiary system. Convicts cannot lie to psychologists about their remorse. Correctional staff are forced to honestly report violations of the rules. The parole system is becoming an ideal tool, as it evaluates only the genuine rehabilitation of prisoners. Do you understand how the administration of punishment is being transformed? This insight into the new legal system reveals a surprising paradox. Justice, stripped of the possibility of lies, becomes absolute but loses the element of human mercy. The judicial machine functions flawlessly, but there is no room for doubt or leniency. Now ask yourself, are you ready to live in a world where justice has become a perfect mechanism but has ceased to be an art? Imagine watching emergency meetings of international organizations on television. Diplomats gather to discuss the global crisis, but now their speech is devoid of diplomatic euphemisms and evasive language. You hear representatives of the superpowers openly naming the real causes of conflicts and the true economic interests of their countries. Can you sense centuries of diplomatic tradition crumbling? Consider disarmament negotiations. Parties cannot hide the real quantities of their weapons or exaggerate their concessions. Every statement is immediately tested for veracity. The term strategic uncertainty is disappearing forever from the political lexicon. Do you realize that the entire international security system was built on controlled lies? Transport yourself to the halls of trade negotiations. Countries are forced to honestly disclose their tariffs and real subsidies to industries. It is impossible to hide the true scale of dumping or the existence of hidden barriers. The World Trade Organization is becoming a mechanism for recording the actual state of affairs. Do you see how the global economy is shifting to entirely new principles? Look at the work of embassies in hotspots. Diplomats cannot give ambiguous assurances to conflicting parties. Peacekeeping missions are losing the tool of secret promises and tacit agreements. Every ceasefire proposal contains only feasible conditions. Do you sense how the very nature of peacekeeping is changing? Consider the scope of international sanctions. It is now impossible to impose restrictions under a plausible pretext, concealing true political motives. Countries initiating sanctions are forced to openly declare the real reasons for their decisions. Countermeasures are also losing their rhetorical embellishment. Do you understand that sanctions are losing their flexibility and becoming a direct declaration of war? Listen to speeches at the UN. Speeches by heads of state are becoming brief and contain only verifiable facts. Fiery appeals based on ideological rhetoric are disappearing. Resolutions are becoming more concrete as each country honestly declares its intentions regarding their implementation. Can you sense how the language of global politics is changing? Feel the consequences for military alliances. Member countries cannot exaggerate their defense contributions or hide the extent of their coordination with partners. Collective security treaties are becoming increasingly transparent. Secret protocols and tacit commitments are losing their meaning. Do you realize that the system of military blocs is losing its main foundation? Mutual mistrust of other participants. This overview of international relations reveals a striking paradox. The disappearance of lies first leads to chaos, then creates a new system based on absolute transparency. Diplomacy is losing the art of the possible, but is gaining unprecedented effectiveness. Now ask yourself, are you ready for a world where wars are started only for real reasons and peace treaties are observed to the letter? Imagine observing a city square on a typical weekday. People go about their business, but you notice a strange phenomenon. Verbal communication has dropped by approximately 2/3. Yet, everywhere you look, you see people using sign language, previously unique to the deaf community. Do you realize that humanity has begun to develop new ways of communicating? Pay attention to cafes where acquaintances meet. Instead of lively conversations, you see people exchanging notes on paper or showing each other text on their mobile devices. Verbal communication is minimal, only to convey factual information. Can you sense the emergence of a new culture of silent interaction? Take a closer look at business negotiations in office buildings. Participants prepare written positions in advance, which they then share with the other party. Discussions are conducted through the exchange of documents, not through live dialogue. Every verbal statement becomes a legally binding obligation. Do you see how business is adapting to the new conditions of absolute truthfulness? Take a look at personal relationships. Couples increasingly spend time together silently, replacing words with shared activities. Activities that don't require verbal communication, sports, handicrafts, and walks, are growing in popularity. Do you realize that people are beginning to value communication without words? Take a look at the education system. Teachers are switching to demonstration-based teaching methods, minimizing verbal explanations. Students take exams in written form or through practical assignments. Lectures are being replaced by workshops and demonstrations. Can you sense how the learning process is transforming? Listen to what's happening in families. Parents communicate with their children through shared games and activities. Spouses are finding new ways to express their feelings through help, care, and touch. Conflicts are being resolved through mediation or correspondence. Do you realize that the disappearance of deception is forcing people to seek more sincere forms of intimacy? Take a look at the service industry. Salespeople post detailed product descriptions, and customers study them silently. On public transportation, passengers use electronic boards instead of asking for directions. Taxi drivers confirm orders through apps without phone calls. Can you sense how everyday customer service culture is changing? This overview of everyday life reveals a remarkable adaptation. Humanity hasn't broken under the weight of truth, but has found workarounds. Silence is becoming a new form of diplomacy, written language a defense against immediate disclosure, and collaborative action a substitute for risky conversations. Now ask yourself, are you ready for a world where what matters most is not what is said, but what is done? Imagine attending a regular school in a new era. The literature teacher can no longer analyze the hidden motives of fictional characters, as every statement must be verifiable. Lessons devolve into reading biographies of authors and the historical context of works. Do you feel the very subject of study, fiction, disappearing? Consider social studies class. The teacher is forced to teach only the factual structure of institutions, avoiding any theories or interpretations. Political ideologies are reduced to dry descriptions of their basic principles, with no opportunity to discuss their hidden meanings. Do you realize that education is losing its ability to critically examine reality? Think of a movie theater. Feature films are disappearing from the screens, replaced by documentaries and live broadcasts. Acting is becoming meaningless, as performers cannot credibly portray emotions they don't experience. Directing is reduced to arranging the filming of real events. Can you feel the collapse of an entire entertainment industry? Look at the theater stage. Classic plays are becoming impossible to stage. Actors are unable to deliver memorized lines that don't correspond to their true experiences. Theaters are being repurposed to host public readings of documentary texts or reenact real-life court proceedings. Do you realize that performing arts are returning to their ritualistic roots? Take a look at the world of fine art. Artists cannot give symbolic titles to paintings unless they reflect the literal content. Abstract compositions lose meaning because the artist is forced to honestly describe what is depicted on the canvas. Galleries are filled with hyper-realistic works and technical drawings. Can you feel how art is losing its metaphorical dimension? Listen to what's happening in the music industry. Composers can't write songs about unlived experiences. Lyrics are becoming documentary chronicles or descriptions of physical processes. Performers work only with material that is completely relevant to their lives. Do you realize that music is losing its ability to express universal emotions? Look at architecture and design. Decorative elements that serve no utilitarian function are disappearing. Buildings are designed as perfect reflections of their purpose, without symbolic overtones. Interiors are stripped of stylization and become strictly functional. Do you sense how the living environment is transforming into a space of pure pragmatism? This overview of the cultural sphere reveals a profound transformation. Art devoid of fiction ceases to be art in the traditional sense. Creativity is reduced to craft, education to the transmission of facts, entertainment to the recording of reality. Now ask yourself, are you ready for a world where beauty must be as truthful as utilitarian? Imagine observing humanity's division into two distinct camps. The first group establishes settlements in remote areas where they reduce social contact to an absolute minimum. These people grow food, create simple items, and communicate only with basic gestures. Do you see how this self-imposed seclusion becomes a form of protection from a world without lies? Notice the technology centers where the second group is developing complex brain-computer interfaces. Engineers are creating algorithms capable of generating messages whose truthfulness cannot be verified by humans. These systems produce texts, images, and ideas that have no direct correspondence in the real world. Do you realize that humanity is attempting to recreate its lost capacity for fiction artificially? Put yourself in the closed labs where neural network protocols are being tested. Scientists are training artificial intelligence to create narratives that cannot be definitively classified as true or false. Special linguistic models are being developed that operate with probabilistic categories instead of definitive statements. Can you sense the birth of a new mode of communication? Look at communities that have embraced digital solitude. Their members communicate exclusively through dedicated platforms, where every message is filtered and transformed by algorithms. Personal interaction is minimized, with most contacts occurring through bot intermediaries. Do you realize this is becoming a new form of social existence? Pay attention to the political debates about the status of artificial intelligence creations. There are debates about whether machine-generated texts and images can be considered a form of lies. Lawmakers are trying to define the legal status of algorithmic creativity. A new legal framework for digital fiction is emerging. Can you sense how the very foundations of human culture are changing? Listen to what's happening on the border between these two worlds. Advocates of the simple life periodically attack tech hubs, considering them a threat to human nature. Technocrats, in response, are creating systems to protect their developments. A new type of conflict is emerging between the adherents of absolute truth and the creators of a new reality. Do you recognize the depth of the rift in society? Look at educational systems divided into two camps. Some schools teach children to live in a world without fiction, while others teach them to interact with artificial intelligence as a creative partner. Different models of thinking and different approaches to understanding the world are being formed. Do you sense the foundations of two distinct civilizations being laid? This overview of the final stage of transformation reveals a fundamental rift. Some people have accepted a world without lies as a given, while others are trying to recreate it through artificial means. This raises questions about the very nature of human consciousness, about the boundaries between truth and fiction. Now ask yourself, which camp would you join in a world where truth has become the only possible way of existence?